Smells like football, baby.
What up, guys? Welcome back into the Fantasy Football Smackdown. I'm your host, Kyle August. You can follow me on Twitter at KyleMonth8. I'm getting you set for the waiver wire ahead of Week 5 on today's show, so I appreciate you tuning in. If you're not checking this show out on YouTube, you need to make sure that you are subscribed, turn those notifications on, and you will not only get all of the other great recorded content here on the Warzone Network, but the live shows as well. Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, start sit. Fantasy Football Smackdown right here. I've been joined by Dallas the last few weeks and had a lot of fun answering a lot of questions. So if you want to interact with us, again, the YouTube channel is the only way to do that. You can always catch that Start Sit show on Friday mornings. But don't forget, Waiver Wire Sniping drops YouTube only every Saturday. And then Sunday School with Memphis, come get blessed, as he says, is a live show that Memphis does. I've been doing that show with Jesse, had a few other people on there as well. So again, YouTube, really important to be subscribed over there. And of course, wherever you listen to this podcast, rate and review if you like what you hear. But without any further ado, let's dive into it. Plenty to talk about today. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see all of these percentages, numbers, player lists right here. If you're not watching on YouTube, again, you got to check that out. But let's just dive right into it. My top 3 ads, regardless of position. As a reminder, I use a 50% threshold for this show. So double check your wire. Make sure there's nobody else that was dropped. Elijah Mitchell is one player, as an example, has been dropped in a bunch of leagues, but he's over the 50% threshold, so you won't hear about him on this show. So that's just one example, but top 3 ads, regardless of position, we're going RB heavy this week. There are plenty of good ads at other position, actually much better waiver wire than last week, in my opinion, but there were some major shifts due to injury and a surprise inactive on Sunday. So my number 1 ad, regardless of position, is going to be Damian Williams. As of recording this, I'm actually recording this during the Monday Night Football game, thanks Lightning in a dome stadium for some reason. But Damian Williams, running back for the Chicago Bears, he's going to be the guy as long as David Montgomery is out. He gets the Raiders next week in Week 5. He's 9% owned. This is the dude everybody and their mama is going to be going after, rightfully so. It's probably going to be a few more weeks that he's going to get the chance compared to Chuba Hubbard a week ago, where CMC, could be back. So pay attention as you're listening to this. If Montgomery's been put on IR, that's even more, obviously more likelihood that Williams is going to be the guy, but I think you're going to get at least a 2-week start out of Damian Williams as of right now. Number 2 on this list, he's just below the threshold because he was dropped. He was dropped in some of the leagues I was in that are a little bit deeper. I was surprised to see Latavius Murray hit the wire. He's 48% owned right now. He was the starter for the Baltimore Ravens with Tyson Williams, an inactive on Sunday against the Broncos. Number 3 on this list for me, again, RB heavy, Samaje Perine. Yes, that's Samaje Perine. Joe Mixon is week to week with a low ankle sprain. That happened on Thursday night last week, so hopefully he can be back sooner rather than later, but I'd expect Perine to be the guy for the Bengals at least in Week 5. All right, let's move into the positions here. At the quarterback position, this is really going to be whatever your appetite is. The streamers for me, I still like Trey Lance and Justin Fields, actually that Fields Lance in my rankings here. And then you kind of have I don't want to risk it. I just want to stream my guys, maybe a little less upside here. So that's why I've still included these players as well. But Justin Fields at the top of the list for me. I know he didn't have a spectacular fantasy day. I still think he's going to be the guy for the Chicago Bears. He's going up against the Raiders. He's 41% owned. He's been dropped in a lot of leagues. I think that fantasy production will come. So I have no problem continuing to treat Justin Fields as a guy with a ton of upside, even though his first 2 weeks were a little bit shaky. Trey Lance, similar scenario. As of right now, Jimmy G might miss at least a week, maybe more. I think this is the opportunity for Trey Lance to show up against the Arizona Cardinals. He's 31% owned. Both these guys, yes, they play for bad teams. And in Fields' case, it plays for a bad organization. I get it. But for fantasy purposes, we want to see that rushing. And I think that'll come for these 2 young quarterbacks. So if you're looking for the long-term play, I'm going Fields, Lance, and then these streamers. If you just want to straight up stream for this week, this is how those 3 quarterbacks would break down for me outside of those 2 top rookies. Daniel Jones gets the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to be in Dallas. Jones is 31% owned, coming off a 400-yard game, but he's had 20-plus fantasy points in 3 of 4 games, and his low was 16. That rushing gives you a little bit of a floor there. Number 4, Sam Darnold against the Eagles, 37% owned. Darnold has 19 fantasy points or more in every game, 300 yards passing or more in the last 3 games, and he leads the league in rushing touchdowns. Hilarious. We all knew that was coming. And then back to the rookie, Mac Jones. He gets the Houston Texans. He's 17% owned. He has 270 passing yards in 3 or 4 games, plenty of passing attempts the last few weeks, and he gets the Texans, the worst team in the land. So I think Mac Jones is worth an ad there. I wanted to put Jameis Winston on this list, but the dude is just not throwing the ball. I'm going to lean towards trying to find some volume from somewhere. So Mac Jones coming in at 5 is definitely not is not somebody I would love to start this week. If you can get Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, I love those guys as streamers this week based off of their NFC East matchups. But again, Fields, Lance would be my priorities if you want to take a legit shot. Drew Lock, don't forget about him. Superflex is only 1% owned. Keep an eye, monitor the Teddy Bridgewater situation. Just want to throw that out there for the Superflex folks. All right, let's move to the running back. I talked about the top 3 guys on this list because they're my top 3 overall, but I do want to point out Michael Carter continuing to be used more of a feature back. He's 51% owned, gets Atlanta in London on Sunday in week 5. Then they move into a bye. So just a guy that I'm continuing to stash, 51% owned. Now for the sub 50, again, Damian Williams. Monitor that David Montgomery injury. If he goes on IR, I think you put even more fab dollars on Williams, but I think he's at least a 2-week play right now. Latavius Murray saw 18 of the 21 running back carries for the Baltimore Ravens last week against Denver. He's 48% owned. This is a guy that I'm definitely prioritizing as well. And even though it might feel a little bit more sure because he's not relying on an injury, I still could see them mixing up that backfield the rest of the way. So don't blow all your fab, but Murray's a guy that I'm prioritizing, obviously. Number 3 on this list for me is Samaje Perine. I talked about him earlier. Mixon's week to week. They could use Chris Evans a bit as well instead of just giving Perine 100% of Mixon's work, but I'm okay putting some fab in on Perine, expecting him to be a play in week 5. Number 4 on this list is J.D. McKissick. Had an amazing diving touchdown last week. This Washington football team defense has not been very good, which has led to this offense having to play catch up in a lot of games. When that happens, McKissick is going to be solid. If they're not favored, this is a guy that you can play in half PPR, but PPR for sure. So McKissick 39% owned. Again, I don't think he has the upside of some of these other guys, but can continue to be a flex in PPR leagues or even a bye week fill in as those approach. Alex Collins, number 5 on this list for me, 2% owned, 22 snaps, 12 touches compared to 25 snaps and 14 touches for Chris Carson. We heard rumblings that Carson was a little bit banged up last week. That was now on the injury report, looked good to go. And then Collins got a lot of work, had a nice touchdown run. This guy is like a priority handcuff for me, and he's only 2% owned. When you compare him to a lot of the other handcuff type running backs, it's amazing that he's only 2% owned. You need to go pick up Alex Collins. Deeper league adds at the running back position. Brandon Bolden, the running back for the New England Patriots, he saw 6 targets, caught them all. He could be the James White running back in this backfield. Stevenson was inactive, and then J.J. Taylor fumbled. So Bolden could be the guy, but I'm hoping that leads a little bit more Damian Harris action as he saw career high in routes run. Khalil Herbert, running back for the Chicago Bears. He is a guy that Williams was a little bit banged up in that game, so Herbert saw some touches for the Bears in that backfield. He's 0% owned. Williams should be good to go. That's why he's at the top of my list. But Herbert's a guy that I'm adding in deeper leagues just in case. And then Chris Evans, mentioned him, could be in for a potential split as long as Joe Mixon's out. He's 1% owned. So as we move on to the wide receivers, want to remind you guys, don't forget, I mentioned it at the top, waiver wire sniping. Bye week start in week 6. So you're going to want to tune into waiver wire sniping, especially starting this week, as we'll give you that extra little edge on the rest of your league as teams head into their bye weeks. More teams in your league are going to be streaming. They're going to be looking for those ads. Maybe they, for bye week fill-ins. Maybe they aren't streamers with you. Maybe you're not competing them on a week to week for streaming options. But now that the bye weeks are going to be kicking in, more teams going to be tuned in. So get that jump on them. All right, wide receivers. Here we go. It's Bears heavy. I don't know what the hell the deal is, but Darnell Mooney, he had an amazing game, 5 for 125. Allen Robinson owners are like, what the hell? Give me some of that. But Mooney has been really solid as far as opportunities. 7 or more targets in 3 or 4 games. He's on the field nonstop. He's the clear, I don't know, 1B receiver to Allen Robinson. So he's got the Raiders next week. He's 38% owned. He would be at the top of my list as far as wide receivers go. My boy Tim Patrick, I'm pretty sure I have a typo on here, actually. I have 23% owned. I believe he's closer to 40% owned. So apologize for that. But he's still my number 2 ad. He saw 6 targets last week. While it didn't amount to a ton of production, this was his first game under 11 fantasy points on the year. They lost Teddy Bridgewater at halftime. They also lost another wide receiver to injury. So Jerry Jeudy's still due back in maybe 3 to 4 weeks, but Tim Patrick's a guy that I'd continue to look to add if I haven't already and start as a lower end wide receiver 3. Number 3 on this list is Curtis Samuel. He's 40% owned. He saw limited snaps last week, but it's his first week back, his first action last week in months for the Washington football team. And as I said earlier, that is a team that struggles on the defensive side of the ball. A little bit surprising. They lost Logan Thomas in that game, and he's week to week. So there's some more opportunities for targets there. Curtis Samuel would be number 3 on this list for me. Number 4 is honestly a guy that I've completely ignored. I haven't mentioned his name one single time on this show, whether it be waiver wire, start, sit, doesn't matter. Devonte Parker, 38% owned. He has 7 or more targets in every game this year. Will Fuller is injured again, and this is a guy that just missed a touchdown last week. At Tampa Bay, 38% owned. This is a team that has not been very good. They're playing from behind. He's getting the opportunities. Devonte Parker should be added. Oof, I didn't think I'd ever say that again. Number 5 on this list, Jameson Crowder. At Atlanta, 20% owned. This is more of a 1 week play for me because Crowder will be heading into the bye in week 6. Not sure I'm going to hold him for another week, but he saw 9 targets. So if you need a fill-in wide receiver for week 5, I have no problem picking up the Irish whiskey, Jameson Crowder, going up against the porous Falcons defense. Deeper league ads, got 4 of them for you. Van Jefferson, 5% owned, a little bit more owned, but he could be out there in some of your deeper leagues. He's at Seattle. This dude, back-to-back week with 6 targets, same as Robert Woods last week, and had a nice game against the Cardinals. Number 2 on this list, Kadarius Toney. If Sterling Shepard is out, Kadarius Toney could be a deeper league play. He's 3% owned. He actually gets Dallas, on this next week. I didn't update that. But he's 3% owned. He went 6 for 78 last week. So on those 9 targets. So Tony could be a deep league ad. Chester Rogers for the Tennessee Titans. Him or Josh Reynolds would be fine ads as far as in deeper leagues. They're both 2% owned or less. And you have that Tennessee Titans wide receivers with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones banged up. So could just be some fill in there if you need in deeper leagues. And Khalif Raymond, 16 targets in the last 2 weeks, caught 2 touchdowns. Again, this is a team that will continue to play from behind. They get to Minnesota next week. All right, as we move on to the tight ends, there's actually some names here I actually like, which is good because, my God, this has been a dumpster fire. At the top of the board, Dalton Schultz, baby. Let's go. Gets the Giants this week, 34% owned. 15 targets, 12 catches, and 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. He's my top tight end ad. Really like him. I think that'll continue, especially as long as Michael Gallup is out, which he is on IR. So it's going to be a little bit of time for him. Schultz seems to be the tight end to own for the Cowboys. Number 2 on this list is Dawson Knox, another name that I don't think I've mentioned one single time, but he actually has 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. He's at Kansas City next week, and he's 47% owned. Damn, that's going to be a fun game. Bills, Chiefs on Sunday night, and Dawson Knox is definitely a streamer in that one. Number 3 on this list is Evan Ingram, 2 weeks back now from injury, 6 targets in each of those games, and snaps were up. He gets the Dallas Cowboys, 34% owned. Number 4 on this list is Cameron Brate. He gets the Miami Dolphins, 6 targets last week without Rob Gronkowski. I think that he's in for better days ahead as far as receptions and total numbers, but got to love those targets. Snaps were behind O.J. Howard, but I think he's been filling into that Gronk role as we saw last week. Number 5 on this list for me is Tyler Conklin. I know he disappointed last week as far as total numbers, yardage was down, but 6 targets once again, 4 or more catches in 3 or 4 games. If you're streaming, this is a guy that I still think you can plug in week 5. He's 13% owned and he gets the Lions. Deeper league ad, just want to throw this out there. I've even ignored him in a lot of my deeper leagues, even tight end premium, but Max Williams, 15 catches in the last 3 weeks, continues to see some targets in that offense. I don't think he can be ignored. So if you're in super deep leagues, start 2 tight end leagues, which are extremely painful at times, Max Williams is a guy that I think it has to be paid attention to. All right, DSTs for you guys. We're going to make this quick. Streamers, Cowboys versus the Giants, 22% owned. Ton of turnovers for that team. I think they can get to Daniel Jones. Let's go 2 fumbles for the boys. Vikings versus the Lions, 16% owned. Vikings defense hasn't been stout, but they play a great matchup at home against the Lions. And number 3 on this list, I'll go with the Cardinals, 33% owned. They get Trey Lance in theory in his first start, as long as Jimmy G doesn't make it back, which as of now seems unlikely. So with that wraps it up. Waiver wire heading into week 5. Go out, make those ads. Good luck with the pickups. I think there's lots of good names out there, lots of running backs this week, but plenty of value still too at the other positions. So again, we'll be back later in the week with the start sits on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, live on YouTube ahead of Thursday Night Football. And then I'm back here again with waiver wire sniping, hopefully giving you that extra edge on your league. Again, bye week starts in week 6. So waiver wire sniping every Saturday, YouTube only. And all of that is in addition to all the great content here, right here on the Dynasty Warzone Network. So until then, I'll catch you guys later. Take it easy.